Before we start today, a quick disclaimer. All views expressed are our own and do not indicate the opinions of any employers or clients for whom we work. The recommendations or advice given in this podcast may or may not be right for you, depending on the circumstances. Please bear this in mind before taking any action. Hello and welcome to Charting Tracks. This is part 2 of last week's episode, Finding an Audience and Building a Fanbase. I'm Chris O'Gorman. I'm joined by my lovely co-hosts Amir Yaqub and Ben Hennessy-Garside. Amir is a producer and Grammy Award-winning engineer, co-owner of Bison Production Studios, and a director of Garnish Music London. Ben is a highly esteemed voice coach, multi-instrumentalist, composer and producer. He is a music lecturer at Leeds Conservatoire, where he teaches on the popular music course, and has formerly been an A&R scout. I'm Chris. I'm a digital marketing strategist. I was formerly head of digital at Capitol Records UK, a digital manager at Sony Music, a music journalist, and I now run a digital consultancy providing artist development, branding, and marketing. Thanks for listening, and here is part 2 of Finding an Audience and Building a Fanbase. So one of the other things I wanted to talk about then, as we're talking about the industry becoming more accessible for DIY artists and independent artists, is how they get their music out there, because we have the tools now to be able to create your music. So an artist can, have a lesson with Ben in the morning. In the afternoon, they can go to Amir and record their music, and they can have it online by the evening. It's a busy day, but they can do it.
Right. Yeah, sure.
So how do they do that, though? How do they get it? So once it's, Amir's delivered the final product, the music recorded product, and it's ready, it's mixed, mastered, whatever, it's ready to go. How do they do that? Obviously, the first point is distribution. And when we talk about distribution, obviously the traditional way is that the label distributes it, but you're not going through a label. So there's things like AWOL, there's DistroKid, there's TuneCore, etc. Many distribution services now. So that part of it is fairly straightforward. You sign up a distribution deal, maybe they take 10-15% tends to be the standard. Okay, so you've done that, you've got your music, you can put it on all the streaming platforms that you choose to, and at that point, great, it's scheduled for release, it's going to go on my Spotify, it's going to go on all my other channels. Now what do I do? Okay, well, we said, well, there's the and this from an independent artist, obviously, like, I'm not in a position where I've got budget to be hiring, certainly too early for a radio plugger, too early for anyone else. So what are the things that I can do as an artist to then get some exposure? And obviously the first thing actually is your circle of people, your friends, your family, whoever it is. They've all got social media channels. Most of them probably do, maybe not all of them. And they've all got followings and they've all got influence. So you've actually got influencers within your immediate network. And it, doesn't take very much just to share something on social media. So you've already got an immediate network once it's released. So you've got those elements. Obviously, you've got access to social media yourself. So on your own social media channels, once you've defined what they are, what they should be, where your audience is, promoting on there. Now with advertising, obviously Facebook, promoted content on Facebook, sponsored posts on Instagram, etc. You've got the ability now, because Facebook have obviously, they've reduced, it used to be that, you could kind of reach a lot of people organically on Facebook just by making great content and making connections with people. It's harder to do that now, obviously, because they want to sell their ad products. But on the flip side, their ad products are now cheaper than ever. So you can literally put 10, 20 quid and you can, if you're smart with your targeting, you can get your music video, your audio, your acoustic performance, whatever it is, you can get it into the news feeds of the people that are going to be the best fit for your music. They're going to be the most likely people. So, okay, you've thought about all the artists that you're similar to. You've thought about maybe all the blogs, all the radio stations, all the venues that you might play. Well, all of those are obviously interests that you can target on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on Spotify, with Spotify advertising as well, on YouTube. So you can start building like a targeting list of when, if you do put like a little bit of money behind a piece of sponsored content, whether it's your official video or a live video or whatever it is, or just the track audio itself, you can start getting it into the news feeds of the people that are going to be most likely to like it. Mm-hmm. So you can literally target to fans of a similar artist. And then because when you build a fan base, no one has built a fan base without taking that fan essentially from another artist. Not that they've stolen them away, but they, to become a fan of somebody, you have to have that first point of awareness. You have to have that first point of just getting in front of them. And then over time, you get in front of them enough, they're like, actually really like this artist. I'm going to give them a follow. And I think because we've got these tools available to us now, so for social media, artists can, and this is another thing that I do with artists, is like giving them tools to be able to run their own advertising so they don't have to worry about, spending resources on getting somebody to do it for them. Okay, so they can do that. Playlists then, there are so many tools out there now for getting your music on playlists. So there's things like Submit Hub, there's SoundPlay, there's Playlist Push, there's lots and lots and lots. And I think you can find these submission tools quite easily. And it's actually more about the effort and time that you put into it, and actually going after the right playlist to go, okay, actually, because I think what a lot of people do is let me whack some money on it and get it out there and see if, I think it's become, what I've noticed, it's become a bit of it's become a bit of like the Wild West in a way with these things, because there are sort of playlist networks out there that are genuine playlists that have been curated just by someone in their bedroom that's made a great playlist, and it's just got a good amount of followers on it. And you can reach out to those playlist owners. You can submit your tracks to them using these platforms for their consideration. Now, if they don't like it, they're not going to add it. That's fine. But what's also emerging is kind of like a sort of economy around this of people selling, pay X amount and you can be on this playlist. Pay X amount and you can be in the top 10 of this playlist. Pay X amount and you can be the top track. And I want artists to do is be very wary of these things, because there is, I think in the music industry, there's always the opportunity to get ripped off. And actually, I think these things, when they promise a guarantee, when they promise, like for instance, if I am an artist and I know that I can pay $70 or something and I'll be added to the top track on that playlist, just guaranteed. Well, that playlist can't be very good. It can't be very well curated. What kind of an audience is it really going to have if anyone can just pay to be on it? And actually, when you look into stuff like that and you look under the bonnet of it, you realize that actually it's probably not even a genuine playlist. It's probably got fake followers. That's how stuff like that works. So, but what I would really encourage artists at this stage to do is just to really kick the tires on it and look through it and go, do all the artists on there make sense? If it's an Americana playlist, are all the artists on there relevant? If it's a mood-based playlist, are the tracks on there in line? If it's like a gym workout playlist and it's like lots of high energy tracks on there, okay, that looks legitimate. Is it a chill out playlist? And you can, I think once you start looking under the bonnet and actually just spending a little bit of time, you can get a sense of what's an authentic playlist. And I think people want to go after numbers, like big followers, but actually smaller followers, but the right niche, the right kind of vibe, whether it's like singer-songwriter playlist or it's a downbeat chill out playlist, whatever it is. And there's so many of them out there. And what this is about is discovery. It's getting your music on these players, not so it can drive loads of streams, because I think that's another thing. People expect that if they get added to playlists and stuff like that, the money's going to start coming in from that's not going to happen, because I think like the per stream rate from Spotify is something like 0.004 pence at the moment. So,
yeah,
at this stage of your career, you can't even be thinking about money. And we're going to talk about this in another episode later down the line about making a living from music. But right now, it's just discoverability, and it's just connecting with your fans and building a fan base.
I just wanted to just throw a little piece in there, Chris, which was that principle of just spending it, kick the tires. That was a nice little phrase you used. Just any of these things, whether it's making a decision, like fingers crossed, if and when the live music industry comes back online again, like in any kind of substantial way. If you're deciding on a venue to go and play, just check it out. Is it the right venue for you? If you're, if you want to get on a blog, it's the same thing. Is somebody just taking money to just write copy for specific artists, or do they have some kind of genuine interest and genuine following for the things they're writing? So that the general principle, I think, is a really good one to extrapolate and apply pretty much everywhere.
Absolutely, that's the sense check. No, you're completely right. It doesn't just apply to playlists. It applies to blogs. It applies to venues. It applies to influencers. It applies to so much. It's like that. Does it seem authentic? And I know I keep coming back to that word authentic, but I think there's a reason it keeps coming up. And I think that in this world we have to be really careful, because there is a lot of sort of pay for play out there in the music industry. Being able to navigate that. Normally, if somebody's asking for money and they're giving you a guarantee for that, it's in music in Germany, it's unlikely to be the case that that's going to work. If they're saying there are things like Submit Hub, for instance, where you can submit your music to blogs and playlists and YouTube channels and stuff, and that you can do it for free. And they'll just say, "We'll send it out to people that own playlists and bloggers and stuff, and they might like it, they might not, but you're just sending it to them." And I know that there's like a paid, it's sort of like a credit system, so you can buy like £10, you could buy 10 credits, and then you can submit it to more people. But even then, they're saying, we're just allowing you to send it to people. We're not going to guarantee you anything. We'll guarantee you. I think it's something like if you pay, they'll guarantee that they'll give feedback. So you're paying for the feedback, really. You're not paying for any guarantee of being added to something. And actually, that's a bit more of a legitimate way, because they're saying, they're saying right up front, we're giving you access to our database of music curators. When you're not buying access on anything, you're not buying placements, you're just buying the access. There are things like that where the independent artists can do to start reaching these people. And then your own research, you can find these playlists, you can probably find who owns the playlist, because most people are on social media kind of have their accounts connected and stuff. So the Spotify will be connected to Facebook, and then you can hit them up on Facebook. It might be spammy. They might just ignore you. They probably will. But I've done it. I've had like people approach me and just say, "Oh, I found you got this playlist that does the kind of music I like. Any chance that you can add it?" And I've just done it because it's, if I liked it.
Yeah.
But basically, there's all of those things that you can be doing as an independent artist to start getting something happening, to start getting some momentum, like I said, about each time you build up. And at that point, when you're building the fan base, it's kind of not doing any one thing. You're doing a bit of playlist stuff. You're maybe doing a bit of blog outreach. You're doing a little bit of social media advertising, again, just to try and get in the news feeds. And you have to be doing it constantly. That's the thing. It's not like I've got one single and I'm going to expect that overnight that earns me loads of fans. And the other thing is actually community management, which is essentially when you're on these social media channels, you're not just broadcasting and here's my new single, this new video, actually going and connecting with people that are fans of similar artists. So actually, in the comments section on Instagram, for instance, for the bands and artists that you like, that you consider yourself similar to, those people that are commenting in there, they're going to be your people. They're going to be people that probably like the type of music you're doing. So why not start connecting with them? Why not have genuine conversations with them? And it's just about investing the time into doing that. And actually, by doing that, you start earning new fans in a sort of less spammy way.
I was going to say that when is it spam? When's it not spam?
Yeah.
And
well, if you just comment and here's a link, that's going to be spam. If you're like in the comments of like some artists have released a new video and people are having a genuine like, oh my god, I love this song. Oh my god, I love this bit. I think SoundCloud is a great platform for this. Actually, you get the comments in the set. Oh, and it'll be like, oh, that drop at 0, 1, and you get the time code. That is actually a really nice, authentic way of. I see people connecting with each other, and they tend to be artists a lot of the time, or DJs on SoundCloud. It's one of those platforms that it's a community in that way. And when it's genuine like that, you can actually refer to something that you like about the content that you've just viewed or listened to, and you're having a genuine connection. And then you might follow that person; they might follow you back. You're not spamming them with a link. You're not, check out my single.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference. And it's like, because if you're like, oh, if you get conversations going with these people, they will find your music. They will find your channel and they will discover it on their own. You don't need to shove it down their throat.
Yeah. That soft touch, allowing them, yeah. And I think there's a little bit of a tightrope with it, right? Because you don't want to be spamming people. You don't want to be forcing things down their throat. You don't want to be seen to be too desperate.
Yeah.
People like that sense of discovery. They like to take ownership of that, So if you're friends with someone on whatever platform it is and you're messaging back and forth and you're regularly posting on your main channel, like things that you're releasing, because you've built up this relationship, chances are they're going to listen. Yeah. So it's like if you in the offline world, it would be, there's I don't know, it's like all the skater kids go and hang around at the skate park, right? And if the kind of music that you make is the sort of music that skate kids are going to like, and you're going and hanging around at the skate park and you get chatting and you mention that you're in a band, that's a very different thing to walking up dry to the skate park and going, here's my band. Like it's a totally different it's a totally different approach.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's a sort of like the sort of soft touch marketing, because what you want to do is make it on your own channels that you own, make it as easily discoverable as possible. But then when you're bringing people in, you really want to be using kind of the soft touch to bring people in, and allow people to feel like they're discovering it as well, because that's the thing. And I think with really building up a fan base, and I mentioned before about an artist that several artists that I've worked with actually that had a lot of hype around them and had a lot of industry support, but what we didn't have is the fan base grounding. We didn't have the fan base foundation. So when all that hype happened, there was nothing for it to sit upon. So it ended up just not working, and
the industry, like the elites in the industry, were getting excited about it.
Yeah, the industry got excited, and they kind of got the things that you normally get, whether it's a Vivo Discover or, some great press coverage, and you start thinking, oh, there's momentum here, but actually it's not real. And I knew it wasn't real momentum, flagged that it wasn't, because you could see that it wasn't converting to social media followers. It wasn't converting to an actual fan base being developed, because as much as people, yes, you need to put yourself in front of people via all of these different methods. You need to get in front of people's eyes. You also need to you need to bring them into the fold. You need to get them to buy into you. And that's the disconnect, because sometimes, you can be, and for every artist that's had a quote unquote success, there are countless that haven't. And often the reason is just like, people like the song, maybe they like, they like the visuals, they like the video, but they haven't made that connection with the artist. And actually, a lot of that is that people want to feel, generally speaking, like as I was saying at the start of this, which is with those different segments of the audience, different segments of the music audience, fanatics, the enthusiasts, the casuals, the indifferents. Particularly with the fanatics, they want to feel like they've discovered it. And same for the enthusiasts, actually. They want to feel like they've discovered it, even if they haven't really, because it's been put in front of them at some point. They still want to feel like, I've discovered this and I've made the choice.
Yeah, of course.
Like
of course.
I get the impression that, like, often to begin with, almost every artist, that's a bit of a sweeping statement, a lot of artists are going to want to start with the fanatics.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then move, is there's a case of moving through each of those things, because the fanatics will do a lot of legwork for you. Like, if they love you,
yeah, that's
thing,
exactly
and
right. That's exactly right. So it starts from the fanatics, and then it starts overspilling into the enthusiasts. And then if you're really at the races, it overspills into the casuals. And if you overspill into the indifferents, then you're Ed Sheeran.
Right. Adele. Yeah.
You're Adele, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what, and pretty much every artist you can think of has gone through that journey. And the only real exceptions are the ones that have probably come through the reality TV. So if they come through X Factor or Britain's Got Talent, they've circumvented a lot of that, and they've just gone in straight in indifference. But generally speaking, pretty much any artist that you can think of has gone that route and has started with some fanatics, built a solid fan base within those, and then they've extrapolated it out to the enthusiasts, and it's spilt over and eventually into the casuals.
There's definitely something about getting in a van and just playing gigs, just driving around the country. I mean, and of course, right now that's not going to be the case.
But there's a digital equivalent.
There's a digital equivalent, right, of just and taking a bit of time just to refine the thing that you do, and refine your offer, and find who wants to hang around with you, and taking your time over that, and not just throwing money, or not just throwing money at the thing. You know, spending loads of money on ads and loads of money on pluggers and loads of money on getting all of the experts in to come and help, when you don't, like you said, there's nothing solid to stand on, and it might take you a while to find those people, but it's worth the time, I think, for most types of artists.
And it's the hard yards. It's a journey as well. And you have to think of it as a long-term journey.
Yeah.
And the artists that do, and the artists that then go on that journey and enjoy that journey and enjoy the process, tend to be the ones that are happier and more successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think that's probably, I don't know, what do you think? I feel like that's maybe a nice place to close off on a positive note.
Yeah,
definitely. Why not?
I like a positive note. What do you guys have any sort of final thoughts or any sort of tips? Like, when you're, because obviously there's sort of granular stuff that we've talked about, the specifics of, but maybe if we zoom out again and kind of talk more broadly,
Yeah, possibly. I mean, the other thing I was going to just say, like, just a last minute kind of, like maybe scatter shot of the different, a bunch of different characteristics that you might look for in your fans, right? So what are the things? What are going to be the markers? So I'm thinking here of, like, right. So we've already talked about age, and but, like, is there anything? I mean, like, how people dress, fashion, because obviously there's quite a lot of an overlap between music and fashion. You talked about branding as well, and brands.
What brands are they like?
Yeah, what brands are they into?
What political views maybe they hold.
True.
Yeah.
What sports they like to watch?
Sports, TV shows. All of those things make up the picture of.
Are there any other
what your fan might be and where they are?
Just because I'm thinking, if we've got artists listening going, oh, I need to get a picture in my mind of who my top 3 types of people are. Like if a few more of those little pieces. I mean, we've talked about core values, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So does that play somehow? Like, could we go for a loose archetype? I mean, I suppose so. Like I was talking before
Yeah, but
about
it's an archetype. That's absolutely what it is.
I was talking before about people on hanging around at the the skate park, right? There's something rebellious about those people. There's something. So yeah, there's a bit of the rebel.
Well,
with
here's
them.
the thing, because we talked about archetypes in the branding episode,
Yes.
and archetypes, or like artist archetypes,
Yeah.
are really important in defining your artist's identity. But also, your audience will probably fit into an archetype.
Yeah. Oh, it's a place to start the journey.
Yeah, it's a good place to start considering. Oh, if I'm a rebel type artist, that's my archetype. It may be that lots of other rebel people that fit that archetype will gravitate towards me. It also might be that people that are the complete opposite of that might gravitate towards me because they find in me something they can't access for themselves.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not necessarily hard and fast, but it starts to inform what might be going on in the types of people that
Yeah.
would gravitate towards your music.
Yeah.
And I think that's, and also like on that note, actually talking about social media, like we're talking about archetypes, the social media platforms themselves have archetypes. Like for instance, the Sage, well, that tends to be LinkedIn. It's lots of, advice and,
Do you think LinkedIn is ever the place for an artist, for a musician?
sometimes it is. And I'll
Okay.
give one example of somebody who actually I think is really good is Gwen Stefani, who, and obviously she's very, experienced in her career, and she's like, when she was first off in No Doubt, social media didn't exist. But even if it did exist, it probably wouldn't have been the place. But now where she's like an artist, that's obviously she's had her band success. She's had lots of success as a solo artist, but then she also has other businesses that she runs.
Yeah.
So that's when it starts to maybe make sense. But generally, you could say actually, like if you're a type of artist that sort of has, or somebody like Dre, and Beats by Dre, or Jay-Z, or somebody like that who has sort of like, they have their music, but then they have these sort of ancillary businesses, and or maybe they create tech products or something like that as well. Maybe they have a brand of microphones or something. It could actually be a place for it. It probably isn't going to be for most people, but it just shows kind of how like there is a sort of sweet spot, like
Yes.
like the creator archetype, for instance. Well, YouTube is obviously the home of creators. So then Explorer, well, actually Instagram is quite a nice fit for explorers. There's lots of content on there, is like exploring the world. TripAdvisor as well is obviously fits into that. TikTok, the jester. TikTok is completely like a platform for jesters. And, talking about 5 Seconds of Summer earlier, when we were starting with Five Sauce, we sort of defined what their archetype was as the jester. And they were absolutely like, they played pranks on each other. They were fun. There's 4 young lads in a band just having a fun, stupid time.
Having a laugh. Yeah.
Having a laugh. Yeah. And that's what the fans really liked about it. And so what platforms fit best with that? It wasn't TikTok at the time because it wasn't established. It wasn't really what it is, but it was Keek at the time. I don't know if anybody remembers Keek.
Yeah,
I remember the name. Yeah,
they were Keek and Vine at the time. That was very, so it's the TikTok of the day, basically.
Yeah, right.
And that's really how and we sort of focused on, it had the other social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, but it was focusing on that.
That's interesting because
area
they're really
build the fans.
Even then, they were never like mainstream, were they? Like Teak and like if you'd have looked at just the social media market and gone, what percentage of the world, quote unquote, is using, and actually for you to, that's a really interesting like decision like that you made there, like the all of you in the team to be like, right, no, even though it's not Facebook, because obviously Facebook,
it has more people.
has more people. But for you to go, no, this is the place where we're focusing.
Yeah.
We'll do we'll have a Facebook in case there's anybody
there, of course.
But it's the time, effort, and the energy, and having the bravery to do that and know that exactly what you're going for.
Yeah.
There's some good learning in that. I think good.
That's the thing, because that's where your people are going to be. Fish where the fish are. Go where you think that's going to be.
Of course.
And even if at the because obviously if you're an independent artist, particularly, you've got time is a real premium resource. You only have so much of it, so you want to put it into the best places. And it's and actually if there's a sort of sweet spot where there's a platform like that with this is really aligns so nicely with my audience, then make that your primary sort of social media channel that you focus on, and you can share your content on the other platforms as well, but really harness on that one and build something there. And the other thing to be said for that is actually there's new social media platforms emerging all the time. They come and go sometimes they stick around, but normally in that phase of when they're sort of in their early days is when it's actually easiest to build an audience on there organically.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Competing against much less people, and the platform isn't trying to sell advertising at the time. They probably don't even have advertising on there, so you can really cut through. And I remember hearing the founder of Lad Bible talk about creating Lad Bible on Facebook in the early days when it was, and they built up a huge following on there just from being able to just having great content, and because it wasn't really the advertising giant that it is now, they were able to build this audience organically without spending any money on advertising. And I saw him speak recently. He said we couldn't do that now, not on Facebook. We might be able to do it on a different channel, but we would not be able to do it on Facebook now because of how the platform is.
Yeah.
So it's actually looking what could be the next emerging platform.
Yeah. And this is also probably where your fanatics are going to be hanging around, right?
Because
these
where the
people are
fanatics
kind
are,
of
exactly.
they want to be at the cutting edge of things often, not just in music.
Not just music.
Yeah,
exactly.
like in culture in general. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So those would be the sort of top tips, I suppose, for...
Yeah. There was one other thing I wanted to talk about, because I don't think we got into it so deeply, was this personnel piece. You were talking when you gave us a big list of all of the all of the different people in the label, and like, do you think that it's worth it for artists to have? I mean, I have my own thoughts on this, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Do you think that that it's worth it that artists have those people, even if they're like just mates to start with, or fans, or people, even you maybe you can't afford to pay them anything, but they're like, I'll do a bit of this work for you, or is it worth trying to think about that, or do you feel like it ought to be kept in house, like by the band members for as long as possible? Like, because there's obviously this thing about whether people are going to do a decent job with you and whether they really get the music or not. But what do you think about that? Because
I think you build your audience first using sort of the social media platforms and sort of plugging yourself as the sort of scrappy independent artist for as long as you can, because that's okay. Because the thing is, there comes a point where you will need to start handing those things over, just because like radio pluggers have the relationships. There's a finite amount of radio stations in the UK, just taking the UK as a snapshot. There's a finite amount of radio stations, and those radio pluggers already have the relationships. And a lot of the times they'll be doing things like, okay, you can get the exclusive on this big artist if you play this emerging artist, give them a few spot plays. I'll give you the exclusive rather than going to your competitor radio station to play.
Yeah.
So those will be the kind of conversations that are having the sort of transactional nature of what's happening. So there will come a point where having somebody like that in your corner is going to be very helpful.
But there's this kind of, what I was thinking about was this kind of middle place, right? So you're starting off on, like, you don't even have any fans, right? There's just you and maybe the other members of the band if you're in a band.
Yeah.
And so you have to kind of do everything yourself. It truly is DIY.
Yeah.
Then there might be this other place where, you talked about street teams, and you talked about where, or or it might be like your mates that like the music and they want to give you a lift in some way, shape, or form, and you might say, okay, well, yeah, can you do some social media, or do you
can you tweet my local radio station and ask them to play the track? Things like that, That's how you can use people as a street team and take that street team online. And again, I keep coming back to 5 Seconds of Summer, but I think they are a good snapshot of this because as part of the process of this, we activated these fans once we built them, and because we didn't get any support at radio, and I really am being honest with that. I know it sounds like I'm bullshitting, but it's the truth. There are many reasons why, mostly because they were seen as a bit of a boy band, and they were like, we've already got McFly, and we've kind of got One Direction taking up that space, and we've got the Vamps. We're already playing them, and we're just not going to play you. And that was the problem that you're up against.
Yeah.
But because we spent the time building this fan base, we were able to activate them. So we literally had them inundating local radio stations on Twitter.
Yeah.
Across the UK. And these radio stations go, what the hell is going on? And I mean, really inundating them on Twitter to the point where they were like, we've had to turn off our phone switchboard because the fans have got hold of the number. They keep calling. And it's kind of a bit of a sort of quote unquote guerrilla marketing strategy. But in the end, they were like, okay, we're going to play it. And then they played it, and they got all of these, and kind of at the younger end of the fanatic fan base that are then not only tweeting radio stations, phoning them up, and then actually tuning in when they said they were going to play it.
Yeah.
This is in a time when radio is kind of losing those audiences. So all of a sudden you've got this younger audience coming back to radio. So there's ways of doing it like that. And also as sort of, particularly for regional radio, if you're, and I'm not a radio expert by any means, and I think in the future maybe we'll have the radio pluggers come on and talk about that part of the world, but I know that building up your digital fan base first can then lead to being able to do stuff there, and it can drive that. But when you're at a certain stage as an independent band, independent artist, then you can be a bit scrappy, and you can kind of get in touch with your local radio station, particularly if you're in a region of the UK. If you're in, well, let's use Lancaster as an example. If you're an up-and-coming band in Lancaster, there's going to be a local radio station. You're a new local band. It makes sense. There's probably a story there. So, you can do that. I think then when it comes to sort of national radio, though, they're not going to take submissions from the artist directly. So that's when... But when you're at that point, to be honest, probably the labels have come sniffing around you anyway. So, and that's, and that's the deal you make then when you make that decision to, do we go down the traditional label route? If they have come to you and there's some momentum happening.
Yeah, and if they're sniffing around at that point, even if you decide to stay DIY, chances are you'll want to set up your own label.
Exactly.
And with your own people that you trust,
And that's,
so even
then
it's about passing off that part of, because you can afford it at that point. Hopefully, you can pass those responsibilities over to someone else.
Exactly, and that's the thing. So rather than going with the label, you would just create that infrastructure for yourself. So so that's why it's still good for bands and artists to know who the radio pluggers are.
Oh right, yeah.
Because you'll bring them into your fold. Because most of them are freelancers. They don't work in-house at labels. Very few of the core promo team are in-house at labels anymore. There'll be like a marketing team in-house, but all of these sort of key areas, radio plugging, TV plugging, playlist plugging, club promo, PR, they're all either freelancers or just... outsourced companies.
And so maybe next time when we're talking about this, the next piece, which is making money, maybe we'll talk about, how do you contact, where do you go to find the pluggers?
There's databases and there's directories, and the Music Week directory is actually probably the best resource.
It's pretty comprehensive. Music Week directory.
And, you can really find them, and then just Google search, to be honest, will return quite a lot. But I think generally the ones that are in Music Week directory are tried and tested, and will have testimonials and
Yeah, because it used to very much be that you could do to have a kind of in, right? Yeah. That was what, you know, certainly, you know, like when we first like met, you know, however, I mean, when was that? 15 years ago, whenever it was, 16 years ago now, isn't it? Unbelievable. Yeah. So, when we around that time, I remember it's like you could do to have an in somehow, like you could do to know, like just calling them up. Chances are, I mean, I suppose I don't know. Chances are you wouldn't. They wouldn't really respond. So that is that still the case? You think in the industry, like that? You could do to have somebody recommend you or make a link, or will they pick up the phone to anyone that calls, you know, or like what's
people will always prefer solicited material because they'll put that above everything else, because the recommendation, especially if it comes from somebody that they trust and respect, is that's always going to get the first thing, because you know. But in times when work is not as busy and stuff, people are going to need to keep stuff ticking over.
Well, that's a good point, Amir, because these like radio pluggers and TV pluggers, etc., they're selling a service.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's in their interest to receive, you know, most of them will have like a submission thing on their website, so that, you know, because what they don't want is like to be inundated with like loads of aspiring artists that have no budget, that aren't going to hire them.
Yeah, they have no budget, aren't going to hire them, and are a bit rubbish anyway. So we'll
and then they have to be giving, you know, so they tend to sort of filter out the sort of submissions that way. But you absolutely can get in touch with them, and then if they think that your, you know, music is workable and they think that actually that there's definitely going to be an audience for this, they will absolutely get back in touch with you and want to work with you.
Yeah, so, you wouldn't want to miss out on being the person that, you know, tipped off a hot thing as well, you know.
Exactly. There's a lot of fear of missing out, isn't it? You know, don't want to be the one that passed up on something.
Yep, definitely.
And more I think like the industry is moving this way to artists and their management teams sort of creating their own promotional team that sort of stays with them.
Yeah.
It is heading much more that way, it seems.
Definitely.
Yeah, we've probably strayed a little into next week's, but that's no bad thing. We've got a place to start.
No bad thing. We segue on nicely to next week then, which will be talking about making a living and all the various ways that you can do that. So that we will discuss next week. But until then, I think we'll round off for today. We have been charting tracks, and we continue to be charting tracks. And if you like this podcast, you can follow us on all the good places where you get podcasts. You can subscribe on Apple Music, you can subscribe on Spotify, you can subscribe on YouTube, you can subscribe
everywhere
across the board, really. And, you know, feel free to rate us, feel free to share us. You can follow us at Charting Tracks on all the various social media channels. And until next time, we have been Charting Tracks. Thanks very much for listening and watching.
Bye.
Ciao.